Hi everyone, my name is Kidiboni Machete and I've been living with HIV for 27 years. Even though I only have 6 years while knowing about my status, I have been living with it since I was born. In this video today, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I found out and how life has been living with HIV and AIDS. How I found out. I was still a student studying BCom accounting at the University of Limpopo by the year 2014. I was 20 years of age. What happened was that I grew up being sick all my life. I was in and out of hospitals. I got sick from diseases that nobody would tell me what was really the cause of them. So this particular week, it was around August 2014, I started sweating in my sleep. I would sweat so bad that I would wet the whole bed. It was so bad. Then my joints were a bit painful. Whenever I would sleep in my sweating nights, I would have painful joints. And magically, my tongue turned white. They call it oral thrush. I went to the clinic, as I always did, complaining about oral thrushes. And what happened is that this nurse, I don't even know her name, it even pains me. But she told me that you've been coming here for several times complaining about different things and oral thrushes. How about I test you for HIV? And to my surprise, I'm like, for what? I mean, I'm still a virgin, by the way. When I found out I was still a virgin. So I'm like, I'm still a virgin. I've never had any sexual interaction. And I've never been in any accident where it involved blood. But to God's grace, of which even today I believe it was God, I agreed. Because at the end of the day, I knew I was negative. There was no way. So she tested me. Then she asked me, what do you see? I said, I see 2 lines. I'm like, no, it can't be. How is it possible? I've never had sex. I've never actually, how? I was that in denial that I even demanded for another test. She's like, okay, let's do another one. She got another testing kit, we tested, we patiently waited for it, and it was positive again. To my shock and my in denialness, and at that moment, everything is racing in my mind. I bursted in tears that I cried, that I felt like the world was shutting me in. They even had to call the assistant, the HIV cancer lady. They were all in the room trying to comfort me, but I couldn't hear a word anyone said in that room. Magically, I couldn't even see them. It was one time of my life that I would never forget. It was one time that I wish has never happened. And after that, as hollow as I was, as empty and as I felt like I was floating when I left the clinic, I walked out, called my sister, and she was like, how was the clinic? How did everything go? Because she knew I was going to get an oral thrush medication. And I bursted in tears over the phone. I'm like, I tested, and the result says positive. I had this support from my sister that day that I never thought that anyone in this world would understand, especially knowing the whole stigma of people criticizing us, people living with HIV, that they don't want to be next to us and all that kind of thing. But that day, I appreciated her, and I still appreciate what she did for me on that day. I couldn't even spend the night alone. I had to go sleep at my sister's place. I couldn't even go back to campus to face reality. I felt like I was losing my mind technically, not that I felt it. I was losing my mind. I was losing the purpose of life, especially because all this 20 years I had told myself that I'm going to break my virginity at the age of 21. I didn't want a baby. I didn't want complications. I was abstaining. I was like on that breaking moment that I'm going to do it. Only 1 year left and I can actually go into the sexual activities, but then boom, I'm HIV positive. Is life still gonna be the same? Is breaking my virginity still gonna mean something like I thought it would? That night, as I couldn't sleep, honestly, me and my sister, we sat down trying to figure out, where does this come from? All the whys and wheres questions, we tried to answer them. Maybe when I was a kid, I played with someone who was infected and blood was shared or something. maybe I was raped, maybe, you know, those maybes, we came up with a lot of maybes. And my sister mentioned this powerful thing when she said, at least now we know what's wrong with you. You've been sick your whole life and we didn't even know what was the cause of that. Now, luckily or by God's grace, we know what is the cause of your sickness or your illnesses for those years. So you can actually find healing. Though she said all that, honestly, at the back of my mind, I was scared. I said, you know what? I said to myself that this lady, I know she's trying to motivate me, but dude, you're not in my shoes. I know the stigma that's out there. I know how people like myself are treated. I don't even know which next move I'm going to take. But at the end of the day, I had to go through it and accept it, but not on that day. After spending a night at my sister's place, in the morning I remember waking her up at 6 a.m. I'm like, yo, Mfethu, wake up, dude. We have to go to the clinic again. Because honestly, I know we tried to motivate and all the talks that we had last night, and I was starting to calm down, but right now I'm not calm. We need to find out if there isn't another way that they can test me, maybe taking blood to the lab or anything. So we went to the clinic, and when we got there, I explained to them that honestly I don't believe that I'm HIV positive, even though deep down I knew I tested 3 times and they all said positive. And after a few days, the results came back, and the only new thing on the results was that my CD4 count was 64, and the normal viral load is actually 300 to 500 or even more. So imagine, here I am. I have a CD4 count of below 100, which is 64, and a high viral load. So imagine, what I asked myself there on was that, what if I was sexually active? What if I had multiple partners? How many people would I have infected? How many people would I be regretting actually having sexual interactions with? A year later, I actually discovered that I was actually born with it, which was by God's grace that I managed to live 24 years without being affected, or I wouldn't say affected per se, but without being critically ill that it endangered my life. And now that there's medication and I'm actually going to be taking it, it gave me hope that, okay, since I was born with it and I've lived 20 years without taking any medication, and now I can take medication, it actually gave me a way forward. And honestly, with this YouTube channel, I'm going to be sharing more about my story of how I picked myself up from that depressed phase, of how I actually got up and be the person I am today and openly talk about my status. And I can tell you that today I'm a mother of 2 and a loving partner, whom are all negative, by the way. So I'm going to be sharing that with you, all the parts that you need to know in terms of disclosing, in terms of living a happy life while you're positive. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel so we can embark on this journey together, and you can get all the motivation that you need to can actually live a happy, positive life. Thank you.